All right, folks, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline and number 38. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am excited to be here talking about the Denver Nuggets on this Friday. Happy Friday to everybody. Hopefully this meets you very close to your weekend and get to enjoy some Pickaxe and Roll on the side. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're going to talk about Jamal Murray today. We'll also get into a small preview for Sunday's preseason game against the Phoenix Suns. Should be good content for sure. Really quick, this podcast is brought to you by the good folks over at BetOnline, who actually sent me new copy. And let me just pull that up real quick. There we go. BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games, with the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, MLB, playoffs, NHL, NBA, and even political props. With the games over, head on over to their online casino if you so choose. Head on to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online sports wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, as I mentioned, I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on this Friday morning show. Would really appreciate it. Hopefully the new time start is going well for everyone as I try to separate this show from anything that I do over at Locked On and make sure that everybody knows exactly what they are expecting. Obviously, there will be more to talk about when the time comes, because this is we're just kind of in a dead period right now for the Nuggets, in between when they came back from Abu Dhabi and when they start up playing games once again. I will be having a guest on the show on Monday morning. Not going to spoil who that is, but very excited to be able to talk to this person once again. And we should be able to cover the Nuggets preseason game that happens on Sunday. But before we go into that, we're going to spend a couple segments on Jamal Murray. We're going to talk about Denver's second most important player on the team, a guy who just got paid, a guy who got paid a whole heck of a lot of money. And had a pretty poor end to the season and then summer at the Olympics in Jamal Murray. Obviously, we've talked about him a lot on this podcast over the course of these past few months. He is the center of attention for so much of Denver's positives, but also their negatives, and trying to figure out where he is at any given point can be kind of difficult. So I'm very interested in your thoughts. Can Jamal Murray make an all-star game this year? I'm going to lay out the case for and against, and we'll sort of go through that. But this is a 20Q episode, 14th out of 20. I've got 6 more after this one. But this one, what version of Jamal Murray are the Denver Nuggets going to get? And I think it's a fair question, because last season, obviously, didn't finish that great. But I also think it's time for Nuggets fans to sort of turn the page on that, really treat this season as a new season and not a continuation of the previous season. Every season is different, every single one. And the Nuggets have a new opportunity, and Jamal Murray has a new opportunity. And I think he has new expectations, higher expectations than he did last season for obvious reasons. Obviously, I'm the resident Jamal Murray defender on here, kind of in Nuggets media, podcasting space. And there's a reason for that. I think he's massively underrated by a large segment of the fan base that likes to blame him for everything that goes wrong, whether he has a point in those things or not. He shares the blame. I think even for last season, he might have been the most culpable for what happened last year, but really has turned into public enemy number one for a lot of the fan base. And I think that it's unfortunate that that's what's happened. I don't think it's surprising given the expectations that the Nuggets have and given how great Jokic is on a consistent basis. When you look for blame for not winning a championship when you have Jokic, naturally you're going to go to the second best player. You're going to go to the guy who takes the second most shots or has a close role in terms of the responsibility for winning games. And Murray, it's not a surprise that when he doesn't perform well, people are going to come after him. And so I'm never going to bemoan anybody for blaming Jamal if the Nuggets fail. Like that, it's just a natural course of action. The blame game gets played on everybody but Jokic, basically. And Jokic never really gives anybody much reason to blame him in the first place. So obviously, you're going to go at Murray. He's a really talented player. He helped the Nuggets win a ring, but he has struggled with injuries. And I think that has sort of conflated the problems that have happened with him, but also sort of helped people kind of glaze over the fact that he is part of the solutions. Before he signed the contract he just signed, the criticism I think went way too far. He tore his ACL, and people like to blame him or at least put him as like, hey, really wish you were here, really wish you were healthy for the two previous MVP Jokic runs, when they were things that he obviously couldn't control. Like he didn't want to tear his ACL. And a lot of it is kind of based on things that didn't even happen on the court. What I will point out, he was horrible for much of the playoffs last year. Horrible. I don't think that it's a stretch to say that it was the worst performance of his career over a prolonged period of time. And yet, in Game 7, he had 35 points on 13 of 27. So it wasn't an inefficient 35. The Nuggets needed somebody to go along with him and Jokic in the playoffs last year, because when Murray finally figured out how to do it, that was when the rest of the Nuggets team had 21 points on 30 combined shots in Game 7. And so Murray does deserve most of the blame for the way things went, but I think it's unfair for people to say if Murray was better, the Nuggets would win a championship, because Denver had problems last year too. They had depth problems last year. There were things that may have prevented them from winning a championship, even if Murray was at his normal standard. Usually, he papers over some of those concerns by playing at an amazing level in the playoffs. And to be fair, he established that level for himself. He absolutely was great. This comment, I think, is unfortunate because Denver was leading that game by 20 points, and Jamal had 29 in the early third quarter portion of that game. Disappearing in the second half is not fair. It's not a fair moniker for somebody. What do you want him to have? 50? You want to have 60? That's not how this works. Denver needed somebody else to play well, and there were two guys that played well in that game. And honestly, Murray and Joker had points where they weren't playing well either. Denver needed somebody else to step up. It's not reasonable to say that he was it was his fault in Game 7 or anything like that. But that doesn't absolve him in any way. No, I'm not trying to do that. I'm absolutely not trying to make that happen. Okay, Cedric is wanting me to answer his question. I will. This is a question for later, Cedric. I'll start and come back to it. But look, Jamal is not he's going to share some of the blame. And does that mean that he gets to share all of the blame? No, because like I said, there are a variety of reasons why the Nuggets failed. We could point to Michael Porter Jr. having 6 points on 12 shots. We could point to, and also, by the way, Jaden McDaniels torched him on the other end, which is something that people sort of gloss over with all of this. I think that it's time to move on. I think not from Murray. I think that it's time to turn the page on what happened last season and do your best to really just try to look at this season from a new slate. Because if you keep carrying what happened previously, and that includes the championship run, by the way, it's not just about the championship. It's not just about the failure of last season. Every season is its own organism. Every single season is different. There are different factors. The Nuggets have a different team, absolutely different. And the circumstances are different. OKC is way better. Minnesota is a better team than they were when Denver beat them by 5 games in a playoff series on the way to a championship. The league is in a different place. And yet Nuggets fans want to just hold on to the formula that won them the championship in 2023. That is over. And the goal should be trying to figure out what the best case is to win a championship in 2025. Unequivocally, that means that Jamal Murray is on the team because there is no other good option. If you can find one for me, then great. But the Nuggets just re-signed or re-upped Jamal Murray for an extension. He's getting paid a whole heck of a lot of money. Over the course of the next 5 years, he's getting paid, I think, the 21st most amount of money. And average annual value on his contract is 15th in the NBA for the next one. He's getting paid like an all-star, like a borderline all-NBA guy. And unequivocally, that means that the Murray expectations can and should be higher than they were before. This last extension that he had was a rookie max. It wasn't built in that he had to be an all-star for that. The goal was for him and the Nuggets to win a championship, and they did do that. The other times, there was meat left on the bone, undoubtedly. But I don't want to sit here and just absolutely go into the blame game for Murray over and over and over again when there are other reasons why things happened the way that they did. Yes, Murray is at the center of it. And yes, I'd probably give him the most blame. But I think that there are ways that Denver can move forward and try to evaluate this on an ongoing basis and not just sit here and say, yeah, Jamal's horrible. He's preventing the Nuggets from winning a championship. I mean, look what happened last year. He's got to get healthy. And I think he is healthy. I think he's in a good place where he can really shift some of this conversation about him. And it's time. It's time for him to deliver. There's no question about it. That is his burden. Just like when he signed his last deal, by the way. There were a lot of questions about when he signed his previous rookie max extension. And then he delivered in the bubble. And then he delivered or helped deliver a championship. So he has that capability. And it's why people have such high expectations for him. Now it is on him to be more consistent. On the other side, we're going to talk about what that means. We're going to talk about expectations for the 2024-25 season for Jamal Murray. And then in the third segment, we will preview the upcoming Sunday preseason game and see what happens there. We will be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, back at it, Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. Okay. Second segment, Murray's expectations. I think in order to properly identify the expectations for him, for his stats, for everything that kind of goes into it, you got to talk about 3 different things first. Number 1, is he healthy and physically ready to go? I think the answer is yes. Just based off of watching him, based off of the reports that are coming out of training camp, how he's looking, how he's playing, how he's moving, I think that he's good. I think he's good to go. A little bit of space away from some of the shin injuries that he's had, the ankle and knee injuries that he's had. There's a lot of different things that you can put into that. But I do think that he is healthy and good to go. And I think in pretty good shape. Obviously, he's dealt with injuries and absences, and it made his life and the team's life very difficult during this last season. Only played 59 games. If by any chance that can't happen again. Like Denver needs him to be there more consistently, and they need him to be present more consistently. There were times where he certainly floated with the bench unit, where things looked a little bit apathetic, didn't always take control in certain situations. And then when he did take control, it was just a lot of turnarounds and fadeaways and not a lot of drives to the rim, really doing the things that drive winning and are the most impactful things that he can do. Also, just taking more threes, being ready to take more threes. Those are things that he can do that would help the team. Um, I think that he's ready to do that, and we'll find out what it looks like in the coming days. Number two, is he playing with Nikola Jokic more frequently than before? This is one where folks don't really appreciate how big of a difference it makes to just play with Jokic and play within Denver's primary sets. With the starter minutes, um, he is the starter who staggers the most frequently away from Joker. Usually, Denver's consistent rotation when everybody was healthy and good to go was that Murray would leave at the 6 minute mark, would come back in when Jokic exits, play all those minutes with the bench unit that included Reggie Jackson, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, and Zeke Naji. And then he would come out, Joker would come back in, and then Jamal would finish the half with Joker, and they'd repeat. That was the most common rotation that Denver had. Here are some numbers for you. With Jokic on the floor, Jamal Murray had a 27% usage rate and a 60% true shooting percentage. Those are both rounded down. It's 27.3 and 60.3. The Nuggets as a team had a plus 15.4 net rating in 1,400 minutes when Jokic and Murray were on the floor together. That's crazy. That's a high number. It's by far the highest number on the team for any particular duo. And the reason for that is because when Denver's going with plan A and plan A is working, plan A is still really freaking good. And I think that Denver, there's an argument that they should be trying to do that more frequently, and an argument that they should be trying to get away from the split minutes if possible, because Murray's numbers when Jokic is out, usage rate goes up to 30.6%, just a little bit, but the true shooting percentage drops way down, 51.8. He takes fewer good shots, takes a whole bunch of tougher shots and fadeaways and post-ups and things like that. And the Nuggets as a whole were minus 14.0 net rating in 444 minutes when Murray and Jokic are split, when Murray's on the floor without Jokic. I don't think that works. And I think that if Jamal, like just if his numbers would be better if he was playing with Jokic more. Like that's part of the calculus there. Denver doesn't have a great ecosystem for a point guard without Jokic because the next up guy is Dario Saric. Now that might be a little bit better than when it was with Zeke Naji and DeAndre Jordan, but there is still a drop off there. Number three, are the Nuggets going to be playing Murray and with entirely bench units again? Because Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, Dario Saric, that's the four guys off the bench that you expect Denver to play consistently. I think that quartet doesn't need a Murray type. It doesn't need a secondary ball handler, somebody to take the ball out of Russell Westbrook's hands. It needs somebody that's kind of a forward or a big that can shoot and space the floor like a Michael Porter Jr., not like Murray. And I honestly think that with Murray, it's probably not going to be minus 14 when he's off the floor without Jokic, but it will probably be closer to like minus 8, minus 10. And with Michael Porter in that particular lineup, I think that lineup could be even or positive. I honestly do, if they're playing mostly other second units. So those are the three things for Murray, trying to figure out, okay, what are the expectations going to be like from a numbers perspective? Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to play with Jokic, or is he going to play with the bench? That's going to be a big deal. Murray says he doesn't care about all-star bids and things like that, but I want him to care about that this year. I think all Nuggets fans would like him to care about that. They would like him to be so good that he warrants an all-star consideration, that he's that dominant, that he's that impactful, and that the credit for the Nuggets can't just go to Jokic because look at how great this other guy's playing, things like that. So I think that is something that he should want to do. He should want to come out and demolish people early in the season, really set the tone, try to score 30 as many times as you possibly can early on, never let another team off the hook, get the team off to a great start. And if your individual scoring and playmaking and production is at the center of why Denver has started off well, absolutely. Yeah, Joker's still great. He's 25, 12, and 8. But if Jamal's averaging 26, 6, and 4, and like that's a little bit different. Um, it feels like there is a real split there, as opposed to when Jamal, who's usually like his average numbers are 21.2 points last year and 6.5 assists, 58% true shooting. It's just a little bit more pedestrian, especially in the modern NBA where numbers are just out of this world. So I think the better Murray is as a scorer, the more likely it is that he can function without Jokic too. And then there are lineups without Jokic that will be better in general, will be absolutely better. So, can Murray be an all-star in the West? Is it even possible? Like, just listen to the cast of players that he has to compete with. Paul George left to go to the Eastern Conference. He was technically a forward, but with the wild card situation, he was competing with Murray for that time. Here are the guaranteed guards if healthy. You've got Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Steph Curry, and Anthony Edwards. Those are basically guaranteed while those four are playing and playing well. They're at the center of everything. You know that Luka and SGA, absolutely. Steph is getting older, but Ant is fully like put himself into that category, I think, of player that needs to be there. Other possible guards, if healthy, Devin Booker made it last year, Kyrie Irving, De'Aaron Fox, Ja Morant, and James Harden. Harden without Kawhi Leonard this year might mean something if the Clippers are able to kind of stay afloat. I'm very curious to see what happens. But so that's 9 guys. That's absolutely 9 guys, and I think that is a tough one. Now Cedric asks, here's a question for later, Ryan. If Jamal fails to make an all-star this season and not win the championship, how much are the Nuggets willing to trade him if this season is a train wreck? First of all, I don't think Cedric. I didn't read the last portion of that question. Look, I don't think this season is going to be a train wreck, and if it is a train wreck, I don't think it's going to be that because of Jamal. I think Jamal will be fine. I don't see any reason why, like, unless he's out and unless there are injury issues once again, that then other teams are not going to want to trade for him anyway. But you got to understand that, like, if it's not working out for Murray here with Denver, it's going to be a really tough sell to other teams to trade for Murray on the contract that he is on. The Nuggets are now kind of like locked in. They're kind of in between a rock and a hard place. They need this to work. And Murray's contract is not going to be worth it to other teams if it doesn't work in Denver. That's like, you need it's with Joker. It's with Denver in this particular situation. So I don't think that they would be willing to trade him that much. Like, I honestly think that this is the team that they have put together. Now, if there is an offer that they get that they can't refuse, then sure. Like, if it makes the team better, then they'll do what they need to do. I just don't think they're going to get any offers to make the team better, you know? So that's where we're at. Okay. Back to where I was at. So you had Luka, SGA, Steph, Ant, Booker, Kyrie, Ja, Harden, and Fox. That's 9 guys, 9 possible guards, 4 guaranteed basically. Only 6 get in at max because of the situation where you've got 4 guaranteed guards and 2 wild cards. So last year, I did the numbers here. Murray obviously averaged 21 points, 6.5 assists, shot 42.5% from three. That was really good. And 58.6% true shooting. The guys that made it last year, Luka, SGA, Steph, Ant, and Booker, they averaged 28.7 points, 6.6 assists, 37.3% from three, and 61.1 true shooting. Now, Murray is there from an assist perspective and a three-point shooting perspective. There's no question that he's there. The problem is the volume. The problem is the volume and the efficiency. Mostly the volume, because I think he can get up to a 60% true shooting or so if he's playing with the starters more, if he's not playing with the bench and the second unit and trying to take all these fall away twos. There's no reason for that in the regular season as much. But I think that there is a world where Murray could get up to that volume. I think that there is. He has to want to, and the team has to want to make that happen. And that may not be the case. That may not be what the team decides they decide to do. But the volume is the real issue here. And I think what could help is the proportion of threes that Murray's taking. Every single year we talk about this. Every single year it never changes. And maybe this is just a complete sham. And we shouldn't be actually trying to talk about Murray's three-point percentage and three-point shooting. 2 years ago, or years ago before he tore his ACL, he was averaging 6.6 threes attempted per game. 2022-23, when he came back from the ACL, he was averaging 6.6 threes per game. Last year, he was averaging 5.8. And yet the points went up, the assists went up, other things went up. He did pretty well. In other categories, the 2-point percentage went up. The 3-point percentage went up. There are a lot of things that actually were a positive for Murray this last year. But the only thing that I would really question is the proportion, not getting to the free throw line as much because that number dropped, and then not taking as many threes. Obviously, he's the main focus in a lot of ways of what the Nuggets are trying to do. But if there is a way for Murray to become an all-star, it is to take more threes. That's not a surprise. Shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. And the Nuggets need that this year with their lack of three-point spacing. But I just don't think that Murray's going to be that guy that takes 7 threes a game. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me based off of his style. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me based off of what he likes to prioritize. He likes to work in the post. He likes to do these things a la Kobe Bryant, where he takes the shot that he feels most comfortable with, not necessarily the shot that is the most efficient. And he can make those. And it's what makes him very dangerous in a playoff environment if he's healthy and moving well. But I just don't think that he will get up enough threes and take enough shots like that to become an all-star. I don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think it will ever happen. Unless there are trades, unless he goes to the East, unless there's something that really changes in his game, or he just becomes so efficient as a 2-point shooter and as a 3-point shooter and as a free throw shooter that it's hard to ignore the effectiveness. The volume's just not there. And part of that is his own doing. He passes out of it a lot. He gives up the ball to Joker a lot. And part of the thing with Joker is you're never going to have unlimited opportunities because there's so many different ways that the team can score. And you want to keep guys like Michael Porter and Aaron Gordon involved, especially when all 4 of those guys are out there. So it's one of the reasons why they do stagger. It's one of the reasons why they want to give Murray opportunities to take on more shot possessions, but he's just not good at it or hasn't been good at it for a long time. So here's what I think was actually going to happen. He's not going to average 28 points per game, 6 assists, 61% from true shooting. That's not what's going to happen. I do think he has a career year, though. I think he's in his age, 28 season at this point? Is it age 26, age 27? age 27 season. So like he's in his prime and it's the last year of the previous contract. And if he's healthy going into this thing, I don't see any reason why he can't have an actually like great season for him. 23 points, 6 assists, 40% from 3, 60% true shooting when you up the volume a little bit, but probably not to the degree that you need for it to be in order to be like at that top level, because there's so many great guards in the West. Like it is unfair. In some ways it is unfair. If he was in the East, he'd probably have a couple of all-star bids already. I firmly believe that. As it stands right now, he doesn't. So 64 to 70 games played, somewhere in that range. I think that's what you're looking at. I think he'll be healthy-ish for the playoffs. Like everybody's kind of banged up, but I don't think that Murray's going to be, if he is taking care of his body, if he's doing the things that he needs to do heading into the playoffs, I think he will be in a pretty good position. And then he's going to play better than last year when it counts, and he will do his part. There are other things that I think you can point to where he probably needs to improve and may have to improve going forward. But this is just one of those things that I'm looking at and I'm thinking, okay, this is about the time where Murray starts to prove people that he still has got it. He does this every couple of years where people count him out and then he almost spitefully says, well, I'll show them. I will show them for sure. This is about that time because there are some folks that have turned on him. There are some folks locally that have turned on him, and fans are not necessarily like, nobody's giving him the benefit of the doubt anymore. And I'm not giving him the benefit of the doubt either. I just think that it's going to happen and that he's going to be better. But if he's not, then you start to really question like what is happening here and what the mentality is, what the hopes are, and that can really get scary. So hopefully we don't have to do that. Hopefully Denver's in a good position where they're a top 3 seed. He's played really well and then he's ready to go in the playoffs because he needs to do his part. He absolutely does. And there are some things that he does really well, some things that he does poorly. And I think that he's got to be introspective on that. And I think that he has, if I'm being honest. So we will see what happens. But when we come back, we're going to preview this the next preseason game. Good Lord. It feels like the preseason has gone on forever for Denver. We're going to talk about that and talk about the Nuggets in just a bit. We will be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we're back. Final segment, Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. Short segment here as we get into a preview for Sunday. The Nuggets are going to play the Phoenix Suns. Suns have played some of their guys. They played Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, I think, in their first game. I think they played KD in the second game. I don't know if they played Booker. But then they're going to play on Sunday and Tuesday at Ball Arena, Phoenix and OKC, before playing in Minnesota on Thursday. That game was on Friday, changing schedule due to conflicts with the WNBA finals. Now that game will be on Thursday, and playing on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday in a short, like five days, 3 games for a preseason, it's kind of whack. Like that's not something that you should be looking at, especially after Denver. After Denver did it the way that they did in Abu Dhabi, I have a full week off to really relax and recover. We'll see if that affects them in a positive or negative way. Yesterday, they practiced. Wednesday, they practiced as well. Wednesday's practice was apparently pretty good, surprisingly good. And then Thursdays, without Michael Malone, David Adelman there for the second day, not that great. Just the impression that I got. So they're taking practice off today, Friday, and the hope is that everybody kind of refocuses, recenters, and gets a little bit better for Saturday and then Sunday for the game. Some questions I have for Sunday's game. Will the Nuggets play their starters? That's the most important one. I don't know. based off of the way that things have gone, I would expect the Nuggets to use one of the next 3 games, Sunday, Tuesday, or Thursday, as a dress rehearsal game where they play everybody. And I would expect that to be the Thursday game, if I'm being honest. That's the Minnesota game on the road. It's the final preseason game. And the reason why is Peyton Watson was back at practice today or yesterday. He's had a couple of light practices. I think they're going to try to ramp him up and they're going to try to get him to play on Thursday in that final one. And if that's the case, then that's the right time to try to do a dress rehearsal where you play your regular rotation, at least for a couple quarters, maybe even 3 quarters, see what it looks like, and just kind of get that feel of the different combinations that you're going to be expecting and the different timings of things, getting everybody on the same page. That would be my expectation. So I would guess that they sit a couple starters on Sunday. I would guess that they sit the other couple of starters on Tuesday, and then they play everybody on on Thursday. That would be my guess. Next, will Julian Strawther get a chance to start next to the top guys? Christian Brown hasn't had a day off yet. The only guys that haven't are Murray, Jokic, and Brown, at least at the start. At least at the top 9. I think that will be very interesting to see if Julian actually gets a go at being with the starting group. Like, would they rest Christian Brown and play Strawther in between Murray, Porter, Gordon, Jokic? I don't think they're going to, because I think that this competition is kind of just a competition in name and not in actual spirit. I think that the Nuggets have decided who their starter is going to be in Christian Brown. Nobody's really pushed back on the idea that he's the starter. And I think that Strawther is going to come off the bench. And that's fine, because Strawther, I think, still has some things to learn. He played 500 minutes last year, and Christian has played in very important moments for the Nuggets, and I think fits better with the starters in general. But the feeling with Julian Strawther out there will be different, and I think will be good at times. It'll be a nice change of pace where you get some spacing, you get some gunning, you get some really awesome offense and some spacing around the Joker Jamal 2-man game. Aaron in the dunker spot, and then MPJ and Julian Strawther spacing out to like 28 feet. Like, they could absolutely do that, and the Nuggets could look pretty good in the half court with that kind of situation. Whether they get to that or not remains to be seen. I'd like to see it, but I don't know if Denver's necessarily going to do it. Next, how will the Nuggets guard the Suns? This obviously assumes that everybody's playing on both sides. If Jusuf Nurkic is healthy and playing, then he'll be guarded by Jokic. There's no question about that. If KD is playing, he'll be guarded by Aaron Gordon for much of that time, which means that Michael Porter will probably have to guard one of Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, maybe Tyus Jones. Kind of a tough matchup for Denver with the way that the Suns are operating things. They're going Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Jusuf Nurkic. And for the Nuggets, that's kind of a tough matchup on that side of things. Now, it's a tough matchup on the other side of things where they're going to have one of Devin Booker or Bradley Beal probably guard Aaron Gordon or Michael Porter, and the Nuggets should be able to bully them in the paint in that situation. But if you get into a 3 versus 2 battle in that where now you've got Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal just splashing threes and getting to the rim at will when they're going up against pretty advantageous matchups, that's going to be an interesting counter, an interesting sort of battle between those two teams in different play styles. So I'm curious to see what it looks like. Would have loved to have Peyton Watson for that particular matchup. I think he's a great matchup in this particular case. And then Christian Brown will be tasked to probably guard Devin Booker, I would expect. So hopefully he gets some good action there. Next, can the Nuggets score at will? Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, if they're out there together against the Suns, do the Suns just pack the paint? Can they get away with that against the Nuggets and the Nuggets starting unit? Is that going to be something that the Nuggets are bothered by? Yusuf Nurkic and the Suns defended Denver really well last year. The Suns went 2-1 against the Nuggets, and after losing the first game, the Suns did. They won the next two, I believe, both in Denver. So they're a dangerous team, and I don't want to sit here and say that they are more dangerous than Minnesota or OKC or any team like that, but I do think that they are dangerous, and I think that there's a reason to believe that they will give the Nuggets some problems in this next year. And if these teams match up in a playoffs, probably be a little bit tougher than expected, and it might go 6 or 7. Next and final, what fun lineups will we get to evaluate going forward? Like, are there going to be any combinations? I did a whole bunch of combinations on yesterday's podcast, going through about 25 different lineups, some created by me, some created by others, where there are a bunch of different things that the Nuggets are trying to accomplish. Can they get Strother, Porter, and Jokic on the floor consistently at the same time? Can they get Murray out there with Russell Westbrook and Nikola Jokic? And how does that look? Do you take off Aaron Gordon instead of Christian Brown? And do you try to go a little bit smaller? Are there things that you do with the second unit that are a little bit more creative? Can you stagger a little bit more? I'm very curious to see what it looks like with Denver, because at this point, I think they're probably just going to try to get through it, especially these next 2 games before going to a dress rehearsal game on the final one. But one of these games will be a dress rehearsal, so we'll get to see what that looks like at that point. Okay, folks, I think that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I know this was more of a Jamal Murray apologist episode, but look, here's the thing. He's going to be better. The degree is how much better is he going to be? I'm looking forward to seeing whether he can prove people wrong. If he can't, then things get a little bit awkward. Things get a little bit weird. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Next week.